My name is Bobby Geary. I am the senior warden here at St. Bart's. I'm also on the emergency response team that we started about a year ago. And so in my day job, I work for the Salvation Army in emergency disaster services. So all of these things kind of play together here. We also have a few others on our emergency response team that I want to introduce before we get fully started today, or they can introduce themselves.
So I know most of you, I'm Mark Tadona. We have a microphone here, so we're getting so close, okay? I teach psychology during the daytime, but my volunteer work is I'm the Disaster Mental Health Metropolitan Atlanta lead for the American Red Cross, and right now I'm interim state lead for the state of Georgia. So any kind of mental health issues for our clients pretty much goes through me, and I have a group of mental health people on call 24/7, and we get called 24/7. And so I've been working with disaster work with Red Cross since Hurricane Katrina.
So everyone should know the Salvation Army and the Red Cross were friends.
Yes.
We work well together. And then over here we've got a couple others.
I'm Lynn Morey. I'm on vestry for buildings and grounds, and I think that was how I ended up with this group.
Mary Beth Westmoreland. I'm head merger, and I think that's probably also how I ended up on this group.
I'm Tom McGowan. I'm an engineer. There's a lot of troubleshooting, and preparedness is just part of my life.
Excellent. And then we have a couple others on our committee. Cece Balboni, who represents the Emmanuel Counseling Center area, and Mary Beth Nelson, who also is involved in this committee, and then Angela, of course, is on our committee as well. Sharon Steele, that's right. How could I miss Sharon? They're not here with us. Hopefully some of them will be back next week. So Mark and I are going to tag team most of today. So we're going to kind of take you through what it means to prepare your household or your family or your place where you live this Sunday. Next Sunday, we'll talk about church preparedness and what we need to do as a church to prepare for and respond to an emergency or disaster related to the church. So why is preparing for a disaster important? This is interactive. That means you have to talk. So,
You don't want to have to do it when it actually occurs.
Yeah, you don't want to do it until it actually occurs. What about you, Charlene? What were you saying, Charlie? Yeah, we want to be prepared before something happens, because the problem is in the midst of a disaster, all of that adrenaline starts pumping in our bodies, and we may not remember exactly what we need to do. Or we may not have the supplies ready. A little later, we're going to show you some good emergency kits and how you should have one of those available at home. So that's part of the reason we prepare for a disaster. So disaster, emergencies, things like that. Now, this would not be a church class if we didn't pull in a little theology. So, Noah was the first emergency manager. I mean, let's think about it. Here's Noah. I won't give you the gruesome details of the story. We all know that God destroys the earth and, whatever. But it's one of the earliest stories in the Bible of disaster and of disaster preparedness. So God warns Noah, hey, build an ark. There's a big flood coming, things like that. So Noah does it. So here's some of the things that Noah did to be prepared for the disaster. He obeyed severe weather warnings. It's going to rain. Next, he prepared his family by stocking emergency supplies such as food. I mean, there were the animals that could be eaten on the ark and those that couldn't. Next, he planned emergency shelter for his family and his large number of pets. He did not forget about those pets. And then finally, he executed a plan to help others. In this case, it was only his family because nobody else wanted to be helped, But the fact is, he did all of those things. He prepared in advance for a disaster. And so you guys, I know you can go home tonight, read the story, and think about emergency preparedness now. So that leads me into what I just want to give you some key definitions. The first one here is a hazard. Anyone know what a hazard might be? And Tom, you can't answer this question. Anyone know what a hazard might be? Something to stay away from. That's exactly right. Okay. Yeah, gasoline near a match. Yeah, it's a situation that poses a level of threat to life, health, property, or the environment. So, a fire by itself isn't really a hazard, right? But you throw a little gasoline next to the fire, and what have you done? You've made it a hazard, exactly. So, examples, dryer vents. This is my big obsession. I'm like, Daphne, do not leave the dryer going when we're not home. You know, dryer vents, all of that stuff is very flammable. You know, that's a hazard. It might not lead to an emergency, but it certainly is a hazard. Dead trees. If you have a dead tree, there's a lot of rain, that's a hazard because what's it going to do? The chances of it falling on your property, on your house, just goes up like that, right? So those are some examples of hazards. You all have hazards in your house and on your property. Have you done a hazard scavenger hunt? Have you defined what those hazards are? That's just a thought for you to think about. So knowing the hazards, if we think about the hazards in our greater community, some of the key ones would be a house fire. Mark spends a lot of time dealing with house fires with the Red Cross. Tornadoes. We could have some tornadoes occur here. Hurricanes, yes, hurricanes are going to come to Atlanta. Irma, a couple years ago, could have come up as a Category 2 hurricane, which means that the wind damage, the rain damage could be pretty significant. The chances of that hazard happening are much lower than, say, a tornado. And then finally, another one would be flooding. Where is your house located? Are you in a flood area? Do you have to worry about flooding happening? Those are some of the key things that you might have to think about. Does that make sense? Am I going too fast? Okay, just making sure. Okay, so an emergency then, how would you define an emergency? Again, this is interactive. Immediate danger, okay, yeah, that's good.
A call to act in certain ways.
Okay, say a little bit more about that.
Well, it depends on the emergency, but it calls for a response that is out of the ordinary.
Yeah, okay, good, I like that, yeah, good. Anyone else have something they'd want to add to that definition? Immediate response? And growing, okay, yeah. Yeah, so the official ways in which FEMA and other emergency agencies say is it happens to an individual or a small group of people. Typically an emergency isn't widespread, okay? So give me an example of what you think that might entail then. A what? Yeah, you could have a shooting, What else? A flash flood, yep. A fire, a house fire, exactly. Tree falling on a house, yeah. And the big thing is it's a small group of people or just an individual. Does that make sense? So yeah, house fire, car accident might be another one. A flood, let's say that you have a busted pipe. Has that ever happened to anyone in here? Yeah, that's an emergency. A lot of times the Red Cross steps in those types of circumstances and assists the family that has been impacted. A big part of their work. So then the last area is major disasters, what we call major disasters. This picture was taken by one of our Salvation Army photographers right after Hurricane Michael last year went through Mexico Beach. It's something that could hurt a lot of people, cause tremendous damage, obviously the infrastructure, or it cuts off electricity, power, water, phones, the entire infrastructure is destroyed. Bahamas right now, Abaco Island, I mean, they're trying to get everybody off of there because there's no infrastructure. So that gives you an example of what a major disaster is like. Thankfully, Atlanta, I don't think, has quite the level of concern with major disasters as some areas of the country would have. Yeah. So we, in the emergency management world, we look at these as natural, technological, and then human caused. So you can kind of see some of the different styles of disasters that could occur. And some of these might just be emergencies. They're small, but other times they can be pretty significant, and the loss of life and such are pretty intense. So does that make sense? I just want you to kind of have a foundation of definitions. A lot of what we're going to do in the next part of this class then is talk about family emergencies, family preparedness. What can you do to prepare for a disaster? So, because I like to show videos, we're just going to, I'm going to have you watch this quick video. Did that go okay?
Yes, very well, yeah. I counted 30 people so far. Okay, so that segues into the next portion about being prepared. So we're going to talk about making a plan, building a kit, and staying informed. And at any given time, right now, I think we have about 3 or 4 Red Cross clients in burn units, either at Grady or in Augusta or up in Kennesaw, because of house fires. And I talk with a lot of people within days after their house fire, and they always say, I wish I had done this. I wish I had done that. I wish I had a plan to get grandma out of the house faster. We didn't have a plan, and we had someone had mobility issues. So I hear that all the time, and obviously we can't go back and make these changes. So a couple things about making a plan. So having the conversation with family members and children about how you might respond to an emergency where you live, where you learn, where you work, and where you play, because the most challenging issue when there is an emergency is families are separated. Some are at school, some are at work, and you may not know where everyone is at different times. So identify roles and responsibilities for each member of the family and how you're going to work together as a team to get people reconnected. Now, completing a personal assessment or of functional abilities and possible needs after the emergency, this might be the assessment also of your living arrangements and knowing that you have large trees. We live in an area where there's a street nearby that has telephone poles maybe not even 8 inches from the road, and probably once every couple months we lose power for a period of time. We lose power, we lose our sump pump if it's raining, and our basement floods. So all those other pieces you need to really think about. Other ways to communicating. We're used to texting, we're used to emailing or calling, but biggest frustration in disasters, especially if the power's out, is not having your phone charged, and that gets very, very frustrating for people. We're going to share with you a couple options in case you don't have cell service, don't have electricity. And where are your important documents? If there's a fire, can you get into those documents? Were they all together? Did you have pictures of documents on your phone? A lot of people now take pictures of many documents and they keep them in their phone. Maybe you can't get to your phone. Maybe your phone was lost. Maybe your phone burned up. So we're going to show you in the preparedness kit some documents you may want to keep in there. Again, if you get separated, how you're going to reconnect possibly. And if you have to leave your home, years ago we used to talk about having a telephone pole to stand by or a tree to stand by that's a safe distance from the home, but so you can count heads basically to make sure all of your family members are out safely, and how you're going to get those people out who may not be able to get out as quickly as possible, and who's going to be responsible for the pets. I was going through some current cases this morning that in the state of Georgia, and several people requested disaster mental health or counselors because of the loss of pets. And for many people, our pets are our children. They're our family. So you don't want to say, I thought you were going to grab the cat. I was grabbing the dog, and so forth. So have those conversations ahead of time. Hopefully you'll never need them, but they are important to have. Okay, now, all of you should have a kit, and it should be a kit that is easily accessible if you have to leave your home. Here's some different kits right here. We're not going to be building a zombie kit, but we are going to show you a preparedness kit. And I believe Lynn has brought a kit today.
Well, no, I had somebody else put it together for me, so I think I'm good.
Oh, okay, so let's see. So she trusted someone else to put together her preparedness kit. Let's see what you have. Come a little closer, this way, if you will.
The National Enquirer.
Oh, yes. Definitely a must-have.
Some Pringles.
Okay.
Some duct tape.
Okay, what might you do with that? Okay. Okay. Okay, so.
This was put together by my friend Sharon Steele.
Okay, so something to keep you centered and calm. Toilet paper.
We got some Band-Aids. So
Band-Aids.
That'll be good.
Okay.
Some food.
Okay.
Ramen noodles.
So you need hot water for that. May not have hot water. Okay. Soap. Okay. Okay. Water.
Okay, so there's
Good to have water. One bottle of water. Good point.
5-hour energy drink. 2 of them, so I'm good for 10 hours.
Okay. Might over-caffeinate you, okay, at a time when you're anxious as it is, but
Spam light.
remember Spam? Some of us grew up on Spam.
Beer.
Beer, yes, okay. Well,
And a candle.
a candle, okay. So I kind of think that your friend was thinking about drinking the beer and reading the literature here, reading the quality literature, drinking a beer on a disaster. Okay, well, we might have some ideas for you. I don't think you're not going to a resort, so we may have some other ideas for you in this kit. A full first aid kit.
Can I add this in?
Oh.
Mother Angela said she found these here at church as they were going through some first aid stuff here at church. We have some mercurochrome from expiration date 5 of 98.
Okay.
It's still good.
And then we have some Ipecac syrup, because expiration 10 of 97. So
Good idea to check your expiration dates. So I also have a flashlight, and that's true. And some things that you can eat cold, tuna fish and canned chicken with a can opener. Toilet paper, of course. Water, at least 3 days water for every member of your family. All right, I just have a sample here. That's going to be a lot of water.
And how much water is that per person for 3 days worth?
That should be at least 64 ounces per person per day, right? And because being right now, a lot of people in the Bahamas have been waiting several days for water, and it's the heat, and so we will dehydrate very, very quickly. An extra phone charger, and if you have your vehicle running and you have gas in the vehicle, because Florida ran out of gas last week, and many places do. If you have the old-fashioned cigarette lighter, you can still charge your phone if you have this piece. Did you have matches? No. Well, how are you going to light your candle? Okay, matches. Medications. Pet food. A lot of if you have to stay in a shelter, ever since Katrina, and there was this picture that made it all over the newspaper of this woman being just pulled away from her dog, and that just made national headlines. And many of you may have seen that on the cover of the AJC. Very, very upsetting. Now shelters have provisions for pets. Okay, either nearby and or possibly on sites. Also, all of my documents are found in this envelope. Medical, proof of address, passports, and some personal toiletries. And in case you don't have any charger, this is just one sample. We have several larger ones on the table that you all should have a phone, like a battery pack, to charge your phone, all right? And this will give you a couple extra hours on your phone. Batteries, maps, because you may not be able to use the map on your phone if your phone's not working, and you may have to find a shelter or a safe location. This is one of my favorites, a battery-operated lantern. We've used this a number of times in the last 6 months in our household. Target, maybe Walmart, probably. Ace Hardware. Looks like the old Coleman lanterns, right? But it has a pretty good light in there too. And although we're used to writing things on our phone, it's good to have paper and pencil, soap, a pocket knife with many tools. Yes, including a wine. And one of my favorites is a crank radio. Everyone should have a crank-up radio. And this radio has AM, FM, and it has weather, has a light, has a flash if you need to get someone's attention if they're trying to get to you. Okay? You could be trapped and they can't see you. And it also has, I won't find it, but it also has weather or AM, FM. So, because you may need some entertainment too, but it also has the weather. So this is very handy. This one's a little bit older, but the newer ones also have a place to charge your cell phones. And as long as you have that arm power, all right, you can keep going and going and going forever with this. So, this is another little flat flashlight for emergencies from the American Red Cross. And if you're interested, and we do not get a commission, but the handout that we're going to give you, I'll let you do that. We have a handout with several handouts to give you, and this has all the items you need in your emergency prepared kit. It has a list of minimum requirements and a list of other things you might consider. So we have these ready for you on the way out, and there's a website at the bottom of this, and Bobby's going to see if she can take us there. Okay, well, it's a Red Cross store with many of these things you can buy at the Red Cross store. So that's available to you. So I think now, Lynn, do you see how maybe you may want to make a few adjustments to your kit? All right?
Well, I think instead of leaving it up to somebody else, I think I should probably know what's going on too.
That's right. You should know what's in your kit so you don't have any surprises. Okay, so we'll... Yes.
So, we used to own some movie theaters. We had one that went through Katrina, and then 5 weeks later we had another one in Rita. And we
So what actually is the inverter?
The inverter is where you can plug into a cigarette lighter in the car, and it produces AC power. Did you
Okay.
show that?
No, well, no, I didn't. I showed.
The charger.
Yeah. So it's like this. You're saying.
No, yeah, it's like
But
that, except
it has a
got
plug.
for
Okay.
AC, so you can run a box fan, charge your laptop, whatever. You can't plug a refrigerator in it; that's too big. But there are
Okay.
certain things you can use. And if you're stuck at home, you put in the inverter and have a 100-foot extension cord. You can run to do a lamp or whatever. So if you're out of battery power.
And that's another great idea. Also, generators. If you have a generator, be very, very careful because of the fumes, and you have to have it away from the house. But we have a generator that we've used a number of times, and we keep it outside the basement door, keep the windows closed as much as possible. Very dangerous, but you can save your food and have a few lights on with the generator. So I kind of feel like that's a must for many households. And some other things you want to share there.
Yeah. So the other thing is for households, weather radio. How many of y'all have a weather radio? If you don't have a weather radio, get one. Because if you can't get information about the weather on other ways, this will help you do that. How many of you have a 2-story house with bedrooms on the top floor? How many of you have a ladder to go with those? Yeah. So my pets, my thing is if I have to get my dog out, Daphne and I have to get our dogs out. We have a plan for Owen. We don't for Daisy yet because she now sleeps upstairs too. But Owen was going in a backpack on the front of my chest, and we're all going down the ladder. So
How many feet does that ladder go?
you can buy them at different heights. This one is, Daphne, do you know what this one is? I don't find it, but you can get them for different heights based on what you need. Home Depot, you can get them online, places like that. I highly recommend this. House fires, again, is probably one of the major things that you have to think about on a regular basis. How many of you have fire extinguishers in your house? In the dryer, in the laundry room, in the bathroom, or the kitchen, and near your fireplace? Yeah. And then we've got a couple other things here. Show and tell. This is a huge charging station for a phone, so you can charge that, and then that charges multiple phones. We also have a first aid kit. How many of you keep a first aid kit in your car? Another key thing, have one in your car. And then meals ready to eat, MREs. You can also get those online. That might be an alternative way of getting food and having a 3-day supply of food. So just a few extra. Since we brought them all, we wanted you to see them.
And just a reminder, so house fires are, we hope no one here experiences a house fire, but that seems to be the number one thing that we have in this area. But also trees down. We have a lot of trees in the Atlanta area, a lot of old trees. If we have rain, we have a lot of trees falling on homes. We have trees falling on power lines, so you may lose power for a number of hours. And so tornadoes. And also, hurricane, we may get some bans from a hurricane, as we did from Irma, but sometimes it's the tornadoes that occur afterwards. Snowstorms, yes, ice storms, that's right. Snow and ice storms. And what else do you think we might need to be? Some of you, home flooding, depending upon how high your home might be. Other things that you think about for disaster in your home or in your workplace. Of course, the other one is the man-made disasters. And at any given time, like Labor Day weekend, there were a lot of activities going on in the metro area, and most people don't know it, but Red Cross was on extremely high alert. We have a plan anytime anyone comes to town, Super Bowl, major sporting events. We have people in place ready to move at a moment's notice in case something happens. So Bobby's going to take us to, now we got trying to get to that slide. So that website is in your handout. Bobby's going to talk to us a little bit about staying informed, and then I'm going to talk about what to do after the storm, and that'll pretty much wrap us up and give us time for questions and answers, and then to preview what we're doing next week.
So we talked a little bit about this already, about staying informed. One of the best things you can use is your cell phone. How many of y'all have smartphones? So we all have them. How many of you have a weather app of some sort on your smartphone? If you don't, there's some good ones that I can recommend. Just a second, let me pull up my weather section. This is my weather section. Now, of course, I work in disasters, so. But there's some really good ones. Red Cross puts out a series of ones on tornadoes and hurricanes. The reason that's good is that you can set your location and you really will get an alert if there is a tornado in your area. It even sounds like the tornado sound. So sometimes in our building, you'll hear it going off on multiple phones. And so it can get a little crazy in there. The other one is your local news weather. I have WSB TV weather on my phone because I think it's probably the best in the metro area. And so that's another one to track what's going on here. A big thing I like is the radar. I'm pretty much a radar person, so I can see where it's going, what's going on with it, and what I need to be alerted to. I also have things like NOAA and an app called windy.com. Those are other really great ones that you might want to look at. So that's one of the things is make sure you have weather apps on your phone and you have your location set. You can use those for more than just finding out what the temperature is from day to day. Online services. The other thing I like, how many of you are Twitter people? Okay, so I'm not a big fan of Twitter in terms of my personal life and world, but it is real-time information so that especially in the midst of some sort of disaster or emergency that is more of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Community-wide thing, so domestic terrorist attack or international terrorist attack or something that's happening nearby, your best information coming in is on Twitter.
But where is the Twitter coming from?
People right on the ground who are seeing things oftentimes are the ones giving you the real-time information, or from your news agencies. A lot of news companies, almost all of them, I would say, all have news accounts, and so you can follow WSB TV News, CNN News, all of those places, and you're going to get real-time updates about what's happening. So if I go to my Twitter account right now, believe me, I'm not trying to sell Twitter. I'm really not. But when I wanted to know what was going on in the Bahamas, the number one place I went was Twitter, because that was the most up-to-date, real-time information coming out. A lot of times when we talk about getting information to someone and from someone, the best way to do it is on smartphones. But if you don't have, let's say your phone part is down, you can usually get a text message out. So try texting if you can't make a phone call. I was in an earthquake in California when I first went to grad school. I had no idea what an earthquake was like. So I'm in the bathroom at Disneyland, and all of a sudden the floor is doing this funky thing, and I'm like, oh, is that some ride? I mean, I was clueless. I didn't have any idea what was going on. We could not get a phone call out after that because all the lines were down. What I could get, and that was years ago, so the technology is even better now, we could get a text message out. So that's how you let your loved ones know that you're safe. A lot of times you've got Facebook now where you can mark yourself as safe on a disaster or in the midst of a disaster or something. So use those types of resources. If you need help figuring out how to use them, there's a lot of younger generations here. Listen, everyone needs someone younger than them. So Keegan, you're younger than me. I'm going to come to you if I need to know how to do some piece of technology, because the younger generations know more. They've grown up with it in a different way than all of us have. Sorry to say, it's just the facts. So any questions about ways to stay informed? FEMA.gov, I will say this, FEMA.gov's app is really good. It also, you can use it to make your preparedness plan. So, yeah.
Well, this is more or less the things that you do. Um, why would you fill the bathtub? Why would you have candles all over the place and your candle holder to sit on? Just areas that just have nothing in them. Cabinets, because you have this emergency kit for the beginning, but what's going to happen when 7 days from now?
So a lot of times they say, and Mark, correct me if I'm wrong on this, you really need to plan for just 3 days. That's what they're wanting you to do, is plan for 3 days. So in the case of a hurricane potentially coming into Atlanta, then you've got plenty of time to plan for those 3 days. Or you can adjust things in your household. You're absolutely right. Thankfully, we don't live in such an intensely prone disaster area that we don't have time to prepare. But it is a 3-day sort of thing. Ice storms, however, you could be without power for 4 or 5 days, in which case you do need to have a backup plan. I grew up in Missouri, and we had to keep our milk outside after an ice storm, and all of our frozen foods. It was plenty cold up there. After an ice storm that took the power out for at least 5 days. So you've got to think about those things. It does.
Hurricane Opal came through many years ago. We were on the bad side of Opal when it came through. Buckhead, everything from Midtown all the way up to the inner part of Buckhead was without power for 8 days.
Yeah.
The cathedral didn't have power, including all those areas around there for 8 days.
Yeah. We do have, just shows you some things to do after a storm or after an event. You know, one of the big things I'll mention here is take pictures of any damage. Make sure you have a record of what happened. Make sure you stay out of damaged buildings. A lot of times there are secondary hazards based on what's just happened. So you want to do that. And then we would, yeah, go, oh, sorry.
If you go to a shelter, and so Red Cross we do all the sheltering, Salvation Army does a lot of feeding. So if you go to a Red Cross shelter and the storm is past, a lot of people just get in their car and go home, but it may not be safe to go back to the community. When I was down in Waycross 2 years ago for Irma, the storm passed, the sun was out, and we were told that Brunswick was completely closed off. We had a lot of people saying, oh, I can get back to my home. I know how to get through the back roads. And there were National Guard at every entrance to every street in Brunswick because the drinking water was not safe. There was sewage in the streets. So just because you think you can go back home, you do have to check with the officials to see if your neighborhood's safe, if it's passable. I know a number after Irma, we had 4 or 5 days without power in a lot of the neighborhoods. I know Tucker didn't have power for 4 days. So don't assume it's safe to return to your home until the officials tell you that it is.
And 2 things along with that. Remember, if there's high water, turn around, don't drown. We've all heard that. Don't go through it. Don't even walk through it because there are stories of people who've walked through with power lines and have been electrocuted as a result of that. The other thing is stay away from those power lines. Make sure that if they're
They'll take your car to
that's exactly right. Yeah.
I'm not sure whether it's a cable line or a power line.
Right. So if you're not sure, treat it. You can. I can't. Tom might know how to tell the difference of those, but my thought is you assume that it's a dangerous line until you know otherwise. So, yeah, 5 minutes. Okay, we've got 5 minutes. Let me here's the things. How many of you have a preparedness plan? Do you have a preparedness plan? Do you know what you're going to do? Do you know, Emily, where you and Sharon and Daniel would meet if you're in 3 different locations? Do you have a communications plan? Are your smoke detectors working? Do you check the batteries? Do you make sure they're doing what they need to do? Those are big things. So take some time and think about that. We have a couple different handouts over here for you to take. Please, 1 per household. If you live in the same house, we didn't make a bunch of them, but there's a couple different ones. This one, your very personal preparedness inventory, I only have a few of those. If you want to take a look at it and see if that's something you want, then you can also download all of these materials. None of this is made by ourselves. We borrowed everything from the internet. So, yeah, Margaret.
I have two questions. One is about where do you keep your emergency kit? In your house or in your car, or where do you keep it?
I have I call it like a mud room with a pantry closet right near the door of the garage. So it's right there. And that's also where I keep a safe with fireproof safe. So something that you can easily grab and head out, not looking for all these things.
Right.
All right, but how can you keep your medications in the emergency?
But what you can do is keep them in a place like it's in the kitchen cabinet, so they're in something already. Like even if it's a tray, that you can pick the whole tray out there and drop it in something.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Or what you can do is have like take out 3 extra days and put them in a Ziploc bag or put them in something else and take those out of your bottles. We do a lot with Red Cross. We have nurses too, like we have mental health, and they are able to always getting clients their medications, 3 or 4 days out. After the fire, they lose everything. They can navigate the pharmacies like that. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Martin, let me add on cars, they sell small canvas totes with multiple pockets. You can put water and pills and bits of meat in a very convenient place so they don't get spread out.
Yeah.
They're little canvas totes. You get them, say, at AutoZone, Target, and other places, and of course online.
Yeah.
It's an organizer for cars.
Yeah. Beverly.
This is just quick. I have ambivalence about storing water and stuff that's going to go out of date. I watch hurricane relief stuff happen and there's all these bottles. So can you say anything just quickly how, in terms of values and ethics, you think through an emergency or a disaster versus the long-term disaster that we're creating with plastic bottles there?
So I don't keep a lot of stored water personally because I'm with you. I don't want to use all of the plastic, but we do rotate it through on a pretty regular basis, knowing that we do need to have 3 gallons per person per day. 1 gallon per person per day. That's not a huge amount. The problem with storing it in, like, say, already used plastic or things like that is it does something to the water that those of you who are chemical people and scientists can figure out and tell me about. But so there isn't a good answer to your question in terms of ethics or creation care, I don't think, from my perspective.
I mean, if you could buy the gallon jugs,
Yeah.
you didn't see as many gallon jugs, do you, in the grocery store as we used to? That's all we used to see,
Yeah.
gallon jugs or 2.5 gallon containers with the spout. Now we see a lot of all kinds of bottle sizes, right? That's
What
what
about
you're saying.
water purifiers?
Well,
Is that a solution?
it wouldn't be if you had no power and no water.
Yeah, that wouldn't get out enough.
Yeah.
You can buy a 20-ounce hard container with water fill.
Yeah.
Fill up and take in
That's true.
out of it.
Yeah.
And also, if you have like a 1 gallon milk jug, buy a funnel, put it out in the rain and catch it and fill it up.
That is true, actually. I forgot about those purifiers that you can get that don't require any sort of electricity or power to use.
But we never know when there's going to be sewage in a water supply.
That's right.
That's the other main problem,
Yeah.
too.
Tom, you had some last.
Something on expiration dates, and we're talking about them. Recent studies show that drugs have a long shelf life. In fact, some groups have got waivers to allow them to keep them past 3 years.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be too alarmed about keeping a stash for many years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been buying water, trying to keep water, but it seems to evaporate in these big plastic gallon jugs.
It does? I don't know that.
I've had 2 where that's happened.
Interesting.
Do you want to give us a preview?
Yeah. Tom, did you have any last minute things you want to say? And then we'll just.
Just a quick thing. First of all, I'm wearing my hard jack. This
change a tire in the rain, you'd be surprised at how much comfort you get out of it. And also, people have different levels of ability. I'm an engineer, so I always have a plan B and a plan C. The main thing is you should also have somebody that's smarter than you, the neighbor that's the nurse, the handy person down the block, the aunt or the uncle, somebody close that is smarter than you that you can go to if you're not the expert on things. And I always refill my gas tank when it hits 1/3. Okay.
Last night, alone in a bad area of town, my neighbors across the street were screaming in horror, and I found out I was real reluctant to call 911. I didn't, so do you do it anyway? You're probably going to antagonize them? You err on that side. I ended up, as I left the neighborhood, calling.
That's a call you have to make at your point. I mean, no one can make that call for you.
They never know who calls. They don't know who's calling 911.
Well, when I called, they said, "What's your address, phone number, and name?"
Yeah, but I don't think they don't share that.
They don't share that.
They're not going to share it with the neighbors.
Yeah, we got to go.
Two suggestions, hand sanitizer.
Yep.
Bottles.
Yep.
Also get some latex gloves.
Yes.
So every touch stuff, you got to eat, so you have to hands.
Yep.
Keep it clean with gloves on your hands.
Yep.
Any grease, any debris, you can pick them up and throw them away.
Yeah. Next Sunday, we're going to talk about church preparedness. How do we prepare for an emergency here? What do we do if there's a fire in the building during a church service? I'll leave you with that. Have a good day, you guys. Go to church. Use of social media. Fantastic. Yeah, Virginia. Fire plan. Important stuff. Oh, yeah, and you guys did a little research.
And the ladders.
Uh-huh. Excellent. So everybody, that's great. Anyone else start something? All right, so here's a quiz. Who was the first emergency manager that we talked about last week? Noah. Excellent, yes. And he prepared, right? So this week we're actually going to talk about church preparedness, what we can do to make sure we're prepared if and when, mostly if, there were an emergency here at St. Bartholomew's. So we're going to start that. And I'm going to begin with Angela is going to come and share for just a second, and then you'll hear from a bunch of the rest of us. So, oh, wait, here. You have to have the microphone.
I'm not going to be one of those people. I don't need a microphone. So, love, watch, pray, act, hospitality, and preparedness at St. Bart's. So I'm glad all of you are here. So last week we talked about our homes. So it's important for us to also think about our church homes and underneath the umbrella of stewardship. This property and all of our lives, we're called to be good stewards and taking care of ourselves, taking care of one another. And it's not uncommon these days for this care to be found in other parts of the society, and unfortunately the church is always the last to get on board with things, always. The church is always a few steps behind what's going on in terms of safety and other things that are great. It's good that we're behind in some areas that should not come into the church. But when it comes to things like this, we think about loving ourselves, God loves us, loving neighbors who come onto the property and how they will be treated, whether or not they are mentally stable or obviously not mentally stable. It's incumbent upon us to do what we can to show God's love and care for all people.
I need my little slide changer to change slides here. Clicker? Okay. Okay, so we talked last week about we created an emergency response team. We've been up and running for a year. It's been really a year. And we also introduced folks, I think, to everybody on the team. And hands raised of people on the emergency response team that are here. If you don't know us, I think you probably do by now. But we try to get a representation of people who are here during the week, people who are leaders in the worship services on Sunday,
So we have the ushers, we have the head verger, but we also get some mental health assistance. We also get, not that we need it, we probably do, but also get the medical assistance with Sharon, so that we've got a diverse group of people working on this project. And those are our names. If you don't know us, well, you should by now. So when we started the team, what we wanted to do was look at, again, as Angela says, the issue of hospitality, but safety and security, keeping in mind the idea of being a loving, responsive community, but also keeping in mind that we have people on this campus 7 days a week at all times. We have people with the counseling center till 7 o'clock at night. We may have people here with classes until 9 o'clock at night. We have people coming in and out, and it's trying to maintain a safe environment for everyone in the time, trying to balance that with open and hospitality as well. So what we've done is tried to go through getting some measures of providing training classes for CPR and first aid, trying to work on the whole security plan for the church. We've offering these sessions on Sunday mornings. We're going to create an emergency plan for the entire church. That's sort of the longer term goal. But to try to work out ways so we can be sure we have a good system in place for the church. In looking around at other churches, it's amazing to find how many have done nothing. Nothing, just nothing. And when we talk emergency response, it's called, what happens if there's a fire in the nave? What happens if we have a tornado during the service? We've had power go out in the middle of a service before, during Holy Week. It's really kind of weird. Like, all of a sudden you start going, we have candles, let's go grab candles. But what do we do in those instances? What is it safe to do? So the things that we have done is we've added, in addition to the training classes, which we've done, we added 2 small fire extinguishers in the nave, realizing that Christmas Eve, what do we have? Candles everywhere. Easter Vigil, we have everybody holding candles, from little ones to people who fall asleep with them. And if you've ever been up with the acolytes going, if you're starting to fall asleep, give it to me. So we added a fire extinguisher. The vergers have one back behind their cabinet. The ushers have one. They're small, but they do what we need to do. One of the things we looked at was realizing people don't know that there are exits at the front of the nave. There are 3, in case you don't know. One on either side of the altar and one hiding behind the verger's cabinet. The banners were there so you really couldn't even see the door. So Angela did the creative thing of just moving the banners over so that it's not blocking the door. We're looking at the signs around the church, inside and outside, realizing that if you want to be welcoming, people have to know where your door is. What would you say is the front door to the church? We had Vergers Guild 25th anniversary meeting here a couple of years ago. It's like I had to tell people where to go, where to come in, what door. And folks don't know that. Where do the emergency folks come? If we've got an ambulance coming in, where do they go? And also once you get in the parish, the signs for who's what, they're not consistent. And so we've got a full audit of everything that's there, what we may need to do to try to get, and we're presenting that to the vestry and hopefully get some money to try to make some of those changes. Mark has our little handy dandy walkie-talkie system. Place you think we're crazy. We actually use these during the services every Sunday. The usher has one, the verger has one. There's one back in Warden's Hall with the Children's Chapel people. The nursery has one and the VPOD has one. And yes, we actually have used them. It's called, oh, we needed the aspergillum in the stoop. Where is it? Find an altar guild person. So those are just to have a way of knowing, is there something going on? Did we have a medical emergency in the back of the church? And then the big thing, we did the walkthrough with DeKalb County, but we also installed the security system, which is a topic for a little bit later on, but there is a security system that's been installed. What we intend to do or hope to do next is create the whole entire emergency response plan, which will be a written plan incorporating all the things that we've been working on. Trying to update the signage that I just talked about. We're going to try to offer some more training classes, CPR, first aid, whatever we can do. one of the things we also realized that the outside organizations who use our campus, from the Boy Scouts to AA to DA, don't know about a lot of the safety and security measures we're talking about, and to try to train them on some of the accesses and what they need to know. The one thing we really want to do, and I think Bobby has put a pad over there, we want to identify key people who can help during a service. We know if we have a medical emergency, well, we know we've got Sharon, but we don't, there are other people who've been trained in CPR, who've been trained in first aid, who may have medical training, mental health training. Anybody in here who would sign up today, just if you're willing for an usher or verger to come tap you on the shoulder during church and go, we need help. And we're going to try to get more people from the congregation just to let us know if we can get somebody to come in on an emergency basis during the service or between services for that matter to help out. So, and then finally to review some of the child safety protocols and measures on that. So now I think I'm passing it back over.
So last week we talked about hazards, right? Do you all remember the hazards that we talked about that we said were kind of key things that we might experience here in Atlanta? A hazard. A tornado? What? Traffic? I wish I had put that one on my board. Yeah. A tornado or severe weather. What was another one? Floods. Yep. Fire. Ice. Yeah, so Cece likes to call us the fire and ice team, right? Yes, so anyway, and I believe that all of the ones that we hit on our personal hazard list? I believe so. So what was that? What was that? Boil water. Yeah, I know. As we were coming in, I thought of that this morning. So I want to talk about then. Yes.
One extra. Someone comes in with a gun.
Yeah. I mean, that's something we're going to talk about today. Yeah. So I looked at 4 hazards that I thought could be a big deal here at St. Bartholomew's. The first one is medical emergencies. We've had a few of those already, so being prepared for something like a medical emergency is important. The next one is a fire here at the church in some location. That could be a real hazard. I mean, we do like our candles. Or electrical. Barry's working really hard to make sure our electrical's in good shape. Severe weather, tornado, or even just those straight line winds. Yeah. I did not get my Starbucks iced coffee this morning because of the boil order, so I'm a little slow. So thank you. And then finally, we can't not talk about situations that could include an active shooter or some sort of intruder coming in to do harm. It's not something we want to talk about, but not to talk about it is something that would just make us like ostriches and burying our heads in the sand. So we're going to go through each one of these and kind of give you some very basics about what to do. And since you only represent a small portion of our parish, that means that we will be counting on you to help in case one of these things does occur. So, because you'll know the plan. So, our doctor is going to begin with medical emergencies. Yes.
Okay.
Yep. This is Sharon Steele. Yeah, introduce yourselves. That's a good idea. Do you want this, or do you want me to do it?
I think I can do it. All right, so I'm Sharon Steele. I'm a pediatrician in the parish, and most people know me more from talking about Haiti as one of our outreach projects. So I wound up, I'm getting instructions from that. I wound up being on this committee because of the medical management part of it. If you think about disasters that occur in the church, we're much more likely to have a medical event than most anything else. And I say that because I've probably attended maybe 10 medical events in the time that I've been in the parish. And obviously Ted Johnson, Lynn Tesh, anyone who's been medically noted has been called to help with these events. And it can be anything from a pregnant woman fainting to someone with a heart problem falling out without anyone knowing what's wrong. There are a lot of different things that can happen, and that's why if you have medical training and are inclined to be asked to help, please sign up on the clipboard over there, because there are many times where the vergers and the ushers are looking for someone to help. Trained CPR providers, CPR was added to our ushers and vergers and one other group. Well, multiple people were trained. If you have not been trained in CPR, it would be a great idea to become trained in CPR. How many people in here think they will never see someone have a heart attack? It's a very, very common, unfortunately, common event. And the more training and the more people we have in training, the more likely that people will leave alive with an intact brain. So many people leave a heart attack situation alive, but often don't leave the hospital without being disabled. And a lot of times it's because of the lack of oxygen to the brain. So for every 1 minute after someone has a heart attack, you have a 10% less chance of surviving. An ambulance comes within usually 4 to 10 minutes in best case scenarios. But by 10 minutes, you've reached the 10% of the chances of you leaving the hospital after that alive and intact. Now, the thing that tends to help, so this is my cue to remind you to sign up. So one of the things that if you leave here with nothing else about medical information, remember this, okay? This is not a Gucci bag. This is an AED. So many people have heard of AEDs. Some people have seen AEDs, but most people have not used an AED. The good thing about an AED is it is self-explanatory. So if you can find it, you can use it, okay? Of people that leave the hospital, 30% of people that have a heart attack who've had an AED used within the first 4 minutes of their heart attack, 30% will leave the hospital normal. If you haven't had an AED used within the first 10 minutes, you will probably not leave the hospital. Whether you may leave the hospital but be disabled, or you may not leave the hospital at all. So this little device here makes a huge difference, because when you have a heart attack, your heart goes into an abnormal rhythm. Oftentimes it goes into a lack of rhythm. But whether it be abnormal or lack of rhythm, shocking someone's heart is the added thrust to CPR. So the first thing you want to do, obviously, is you want to call 911, okay? The second thing you want to do is start CPR. And then the third thing you want to do is to shock them, all right? That's the order right now. I would say at this point, when you yell for someone to call 911, you yell for them to get the AED, okay? This box sits right beside the entrance to the restrooms, and probably no one here has not visited the restroom at some point in their time here. So that's a very central location. So it's in a glass case on the wall next to the entrance to the bathroom. And once you open it, this won't be an instructional time, but once you open it and you push start, it tells you what to do. The pads are inside. The pads show you where they go. And basically what you have to do is just get someone's shirt undone. You get the pads on. It checks the rhythm. It tells you when to shock. It tells you if you should shock again. So you don't have to make any cardiology medical decisions. You don't have to be a cardiac surgeon to be able to do this. All you have to do is be able to listen to it talk, okay? So remember this. This will increase your chance significantly of someone having a heart attack surviving and going home from the hospital intact. First aid kits for routine things, burns, cuts, any type of wound, in the church office in the kitchen. And we do hope to get a second one of these if we get funding to be able to put it in the other end of the church closer toward Warden's Hall. Yes?
There should be one in the sacristy too, because accidents, injuries could happen with flower field or altar field working back there, and you can't get to the kitchen.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we hope to get funding to get more first aid kits and another AED. So hopefully we'll be able to populate them into more places. So we've made a large list of items that we need and are looking to get the funding to do that. All right, quick, what's the number for 911? All right, so if you call 911, if you're on your cell phone or another type of a digital phone, they're likely to be able to have your address when you call. But if not, you need to know the address to the church. So, what's St. Bart's address? 1791. Very good. And if you have the AED in your hand, it will also have it right there. Now, the other important thing is, like Mary Beth was talking about, someone needs to be able to meet the first responder, okay? And when I say first responder, I mean the EMS. We should be the first responder. We should already be having something done, because by the time they get here, the likelihood of having a good outcome is less. But make sure that whoever calls 911 runs out to the front, so there's someone who knows how to get them into the church, because that would be the worst thing. Have them show up down by the office and take another 4 minutes to get over here for the emergency.
Just to be clear, when she says run outside, she needs to be at the end of the driveway where the split is, so that they would know which side to go on.
Right, exactly. You want to be where they're going to see you as soon as they pull in, because otherwise they're going to pull in and they're going to be like, wow, and you don't want them to drive around, because remember, 10% loss of life for every 1 minute that we lose after the heart attack. Bobby?
How many of you all are trained in CPR? How many of you are certified? Joel, you ready to Okay, good. I just wanted to kind of get an idea.
So remember, about 400,000 heart attacks in the United States a year, and 100,000 of them occur outside the home, which means about 250,000 to 300,000 occur in the home, right?
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
Is there a stethoscope or a blood pressure thing somewhere?
We had talked about getting both those, but I don't know that we have the funding yet to have either one of those.
Okay. Chair, microphone.
Okay, I'm Mark Dodona. I know most of you, and I'm on this committee because I am the head usher, but I'm also a psychology professor, mental health professional, and work with volunteer with the American Red Cross Disaster Mental Health. And so I get to talk about kind of some weather-related issues, but also the topics that we don't think will impact us, that we don't really want to talk about, someone coming into the church who may have the intention of causing harm. So these are some of the issues that we're still working on. What do I do if someone is hurt or I feel threatened? What do I do if there's an emergency? It's not immediately life-threatening. If we need to get out of the building in a hurry, how do we do that? So we are going to talk a little bit about that. We are still working on plans. And how do I shelter in place if I have to hide in the building? And that's a little bit different. And how do we warn others if a dangerous individual is in the building? Well, so the verger has a headset. I would prefer that you tell me I look like a CIA agent as opposed to someone who wants a price check at Old Navy. But when we started wearing these, several months ago, the vergers and the usher team, whoever is the leader on the usher team, we were very uncomfortable with it. But after a while, you don't even know you have it on. And what we can do is we just hit the button and we can communicate with the verger, communicate with anyone who is in Children's Chapel, because that's kind of a long way down the hall, right? And communicate with the VPod. So if something is going on, it could be weather-related that we need to be warned about, and it could be someone on the campus that we're concerned about too. But oftentimes it could be just a medical emergency that the verger is in the front of the house and they can look out and see someone who looks like they're not feeling well, maybe someone who's fallen over, and then they can call the head usher and say, hey, can you come up and check an eye on that person? Because we're always, looking at the nave from different angles, so it's a way of communicating. And it could be that, something is missing, whatever, but a piece at the table, as Mary Beth said, but it's not always to communicate for a dangerous person. But so we have many, many uses for it. So let's look at if we have to evacuate. If you're in the nave, other than the main way you came in or going into the parish hall, how many other doors are there to get out? 2, 3. Okay, who's never really thought about it? Some of you? Who thinks maybe 2? All right, and many of us, including me, for a long time thought we had two doors out. We actually have three, right? And the exit signs are up against the wall, so they're not. If you're in the nave, the side door, they look like that sign and that sign over there. The side door going into the labyrinth, the sign is up against the wall. So we're thinking about ordering a new sign so it sticks out so you could see it. And then there's the other one behind where the clergy sit that will take you out into that little garden, but right out steps. And where's the third one? Behind the verger cabinet. And that's where the verger sometimes will go and put the incense out there. A lot of people don't know that door's there. Now, so if something happened and we had to quickly leave the nave, so if, for instance, if I was communicating to Mary Beth, who was communicating with Angela, that there's someone suspicious in the building, now that's kind of a vague general term, right? Because with our hospitality, we had visitors who we think, I haven't seen that person before. Is that person suspicious? And I've been called out a couple times to sit with someone. Cece has done that before too. Can you just sit with this person? We had an incident about a year ago that we sat with an individual in the back of the nave. We went to communion with that individual, and we all got really close to that individual because that individual had a bag, okay? And we never saw that person before, and that person was acting a little different than we would expect some of our parishioners. So if we ever had to evacuate because something is going on out here, you would go out those doors, okay? So we need to, and we may even sometime do practice or a drill or something. But we could be evacuating because there could be a fire, all right? There could be a bomb threat. There could be explosion. There could be a fire in the kitchen. So if we go out that way, then we would want to meet down at the bottom of the driveway. And then we will let all of the individuals who might be in a Sunday school class, who might be teaching our children, right, if we have to evacuate, that we have to meet up. Because sometimes people want to go the opposite direction to get loved ones, and when we all have to get out of the building. So this is something that we're still working on in case we do have to evacuate the building. Now, there may be times that we have to stay in place, that we could have a tornado. We don't get a lot of tornadoes here, but we do get them, okay? So if there's severe weather, or there could be, we could get a call, the VPOD person at the desk could answer the phone saying, lock your church, there's something going on in the neighborhood, okay? There's a shooter in the neighborhood. So then we would lock the church and we would, stay in place. So something that might be going on, a bomb threat at another facility or somewhere down the street, not our bomb threat, because we're not going to, hide here if there's a bomb threat in the church. And then if there's a tornado, we've even talked about possibly having a tornado drill, and where are safe places, okay? The nave has a lot of glass, right? Just like, you look for safe places in your place of work. So bathrooms, interior hallways, vesting room, we're all not going to fit in the hallway of the vesting room. But then also downstairs in the music suite for those people who are able to get down there. So these are things that we're still working on, and we will have in our final plan.
And we'll have signs that designate where those locations are.
Yes, we're actually looking at, thank you, we're looking at purchasing some new signs. But again, if you are a health professional, a mental health professional, or trained in CPR, and CPR oftentimes comes with first aid attached to it, please let us know, because we do want to develop a roster that we're going to have probably somewhere in the stand, like the sign-in stand or something, so any one of us can grab it to see, oh, Sharon's not here, oh, Ted's not here, oh, wait, so-and-so is here. I didn't know so-and-so was a medical professional or a mental health professional. Yes?
You're going to have blueprints of the church in various places?
Well, that's something else.
Who don't know their way around the building.
That's another good point that we've been talking about, getting some really good maps to have laminated to have in different places that we want to do for people. We have some in some of the rooms, I believe, have exit maps, but even some larger ones. Now, so if something were to happen, and we hope and pray that we don't need to really worry too much about this, but, reality is events are going on around the country and also with different churches. So first, you would call 911, but has anybody been through any kind of active shooter training at their workplace? There's some really good video clips out there for the work environment, and there are three main things that you need to think about. Run, hide, and as a very last resort, fight. So running would be having an escape route. So simply what I talked about if we had to leave the nave. Now we're thinking about, if you look at the doors to get into the nave, you have three sets. You have the set from the outer narthex. You have two sets in the kitchen. If we purchase simply a 2x4 that's painted gray, that's sitting like on the side up against the wall that people wouldn't even notice, and if we ever had an active shooter, someone coming in here, we could see a weapon, we could, hear gunfire, the ushers could really take those 2x4s, slide them in the door handles that are on the other side, and then they won't be able to open those doors. It could be very quick, and it could save lives. It could slow down the shooter. Yes, the shooter could shoot the glass, okay, and go through the glass on the side, but the key would be to slow someone down, to give us, as we know, seconds make a difference, right? To give us the chance to get out. So don't worry about grabbing all your stuff, okay? And also I want to let you know that you may notice that at the 10:30 service, there's always an usher in the outer narthex, and it's usually the usher with the walkie-talkie. About 10:45 to 10:50, whoever's on V-Pod then locks that office door, locks that side door on the side, because we have a lot of ways to get into this church, as we know, and they come out here and they stand to the entrance, they stand the outer narthex, so that fourth usher can go in and do the collection and participate in communion. So we're kind of piggybacking. So we do that, we've been doing that for several months, and most people probably wouldn't even notice that, but that's just another way to have someone out here. And again, we could have, at some point, we could have someone coming in to pick up a child who should not be picking up a child, right? In the nursery, and because the nursery has a headset, a walkie-talkie too. They all come just with the headset or without, so they may just have it on in the nursery, because we just don't know. I mean, we've been very lucky, but there are some precautions that we can be taking. So you're going to run, and if you're in a classroom or somewhere on the campus, it's always, close the door, turn off the lights. If you can, lock it, put your phone on silent, because people will be texting, and then because they're looking for rooms or places where someone might be. So hide in place. Last resort, if there's nothing else you can do, human instincts kick in, fight or flight response, adrenaline kicks in, you have a lot more strength than you ever realized you had, and then fight. It might be picking up the chairs in the nave and throwing them, if you had to. I mean, we just hope and pray this never happens, but just to think about things, so people don't just sit. And that's happened a lot of times, right? When people were shocked, they're having Bible study at a church, or something's going on in a store, or in a workplace. So there are things that you can do. And I hate to say this, and it's not always healthy, but with my background, I'm always aware of my surroundings. I'm always, Mary Beth, to another mental health professional, I'm always, even in restaurants or different places, I'm always looking for my exits. But that's just something that, that I've gotten used to. And we don't want to have to live that way. We don't want to live in fear, but we just need to be aware and, and have a plan. So again, even some little things that we can do. We don't want to make this, a fortress. We don't want to keep everyone locked out. And people come to our church who may look different from us. We haven't seen them before. And so we had someone here last Sunday when I was ushering that we kept an eye on. We didn't think that person was going to hurt anybody, but that person was very interested in quite frankly, in the little gizmos for hearing impaired, and there was a whole basket of them. So he was very interested in looking at them and trying to take them apart. And we did not leave him alone, in other words, until he left the campus. I don't think he was going to hurt anyone, but he may have been looking for something to pick up or take, or maybe he was just curious. We just don't know. So how we balance, I know this is a conversation we've had before and we'll continue to have, how we balance that hospitality with being cautious. And we want people to feel welcome to come back. So also thinking about, we have young people. We have, we range from 6 months old to in our 90s here. So while we're trying to, get ourselves out and take care of ourselves, look around you, because we have people may not have as many mobility issues as you do. If we ever have to, hunker down in place, get to a safe place because of weather, or leave an exit. When I was walking the exits this morning and noticed that if we ever had to exit, and if we had people leaving the 2 doors on the right, they will likely bottleneck going down those few steps because there's that garden wall, and then you have to go down a few steps from there. So if we have a lot of people going out that way, it may be a little slower to get out that way. But we do want to get to the point that we're communicating with all of the Sunday school teachers and everyone. So if we ever evacuate, we're all meeting up at the same place. So that's how you can gather, just like you would at your house. We talked about last Sunday, you'd gather back up with your loved ones. So we're just kind of beginning some of this. I know these are topics we don't like to talk about, but our education is really important. Yes.
I hear you very focused on our worship time, right? I feel like it's going to be important also for Sunday school time, fellowship time, after church time, what happens with people in the kitchen, what's happening with people in the social hall. And so those are the kind of things that I would be looking forward to as far as the planning.
And that's a great comment, because wherever you are, like now here, we can get out that door, right? If that's a safe door out, we don't know. Right.
If you're aware of those things, because not everybody's been here for 30 years and knows everything.
You're right. And again, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Silly question, but talk about evacuating. But what happens after? Everyone gets out.
Then what?
Then we just run into the what I mean, you know what I mean?
Right.
That's not an end in itself. Maybe we can't plan that far. We have no idea.
And we don't know. And if we evacuate, we don't know if we're safe or not necessarily.
Well, that's what I mean. It's
right. Right. Where do we go from there? Do we go back to our cars? Is that safe?
It's an absurd situation.
Right.
Somebody's going to deal with that.
But it's a start.
It's a start. No, I'm just
Right.
curious if there's best practices for that, or
So, let me interject
Yes.
here. So, I'm getting close to
I
the
know.
end.
It's this. Yeah.
So, it's a work in progress. We are, as I said, we're working on an entire emergency response plan, which then would also have what happens after we've evacuated, how do we account for people, how do we make sure everyone is accounted for, which is difficult to do on a Sunday morning, but we're going to try our best to figure that out. And so once we've gotten that plan in place, we will certainly be having another type of meeting or presentation that really shares those other pieces. And that information will be available to parishioners so that they are very aware of what's going to happen.
really appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah.
It is a start. We still have a long journey to get there.
So, since I'm always the handicap accessibility eyes on me, so the fastest way to get out of the day for exit is definitely not through the way we go in, because you have to go through the building, it takes longer to get out. The fastest way is the front doors. However, none of our 3 front doors are wheelchair accessible to go out. And I'm also putting my property committee hat on. The one that would be closest and most easily done would probably be the one that goes to the labyrinth, and we would love to have wheelchair accessibility to the labyrinth anyway. So I'm just throwing that onto you guys' plate as one of your things to discuss and talk about as y'all go forward.
And it's not wide enough. Is that part of it?
It's not about width, it's about after you get out, how do you get down to the street? There's steps.
Okay. And that's a good reminder and I'm glad you said that, because we're working very closely with Building and Grounds Committee, because the two really have to stay connected to some of the facility issues. So we'll continue working with that. And even, I was thinking about even the steps, because you walk out if you leave the other two, there are steps down there too. There's not a ramp over there too. So I know we're going to save a little time for discussion. So do you want to pick up here, and then this is you? Or is this Angela? Yeah, we have about
Okay,
10.
this is fast. I'll be really quick. So just a few things here. we have tools. The tools we have in our church are you. People is the first tool that we have. If you see something, you say something. If something looks a little off, you've got to let someone know. That's the thing. If you smell smoke, or if you see a fire, or whatever, those are things that you've got to let people know. Emergency response team, we're a tool. We're just simply a tool that's trying to work through this. Fire alarms, smoke detectors, signage that identifies exits, medical equipment, the walkie-talkies, and our security system. All of those things are tools, and we have to know how to use them and the purpose of using those. So with that, I want to switch it over to the final piece on the security systems, and Angela and Cece, I believe, are going to talk about the security system from more of a personal perspective, I believe.
We'll share in this.
Okay, we'll share.
So during the week, when most of you are not here, is when things tend to happen. This past week alone, on Friday, what did you do?
Well, we had 2 visitors last week, and the first thing I'd love to say is a person who is homeless is not a dangerous person necessarily. A dangerous person is a dangerous person. So we had 2 people that wanted in that were not able to be helped but needed help. So Friday afternoon I was alone on campus, and we had a man trying to get in this door and then the choir room door carrying a box. We've had people that have been in the choir room and stayed for a moment or a day or a week. So this is the kind of thing that we're talking about. Then we can talk about the time. Bev and I were here on a Friday. Fridays are fascinating.
Then on Wednesday of last week, the police were called for another person. So the police have been called here a few times in the past month. Cece mentioned the person was staying downstairs in the choir room, and we found a candle that the person had obviously lit at night so they wouldn't be in the dark. Well, that was a potential fire hazard. So having this security system with the cameras has allowed us to track down when people have entered the building, what they look like. Someone came and backed up to the choir door back in July, unloaded some things, drove around, and caught him coming outside of the building, brought those things inside the building. We haven't been able to find them just yet. But we have identified who the person is who's been in here a few different times through doors that have been left unlocked. So we have to shore up our efforts to make certain doors are locked. When the police came once, they said we need to sweep the entire building before leaving because there are too many places where people can hide. But we discovered the doors to Warden's Hall can be locked, so we're going to start locking those doors at certain times to prevent someone from going up there. So there's a lot that happens during the week. Sometimes people, like you said, the homeless person does not necessarily mean that they're unstable, so we are gauging the behavior of people, not seeing, oh, that person is homeless, keep out, but what their behavior is. Friday, Cece was concerned because she had a client, is also Wednesday, coming in, and then that person potentially could have been frightened by the person's behavior. So
Friday, just interesting, because I've got the best window in the house. I'm looking out, and there is a man who walks up the stairs, tries to get into the building. There's no one here to admit him in the building. And then he goes down the stairs carrying his box, goes over into the hedges between the choir thing, and then emerges and takes his shirt off and turns and starts ranting at people that are not there. And then turns around and comes back, and this is all on camera now at this point, and then turns around and starts ranting again, and then proceeds to go off to the left toward the office and remove his pants. Now, I don't know why. I just know that I can't help. I cannot help. And for what we do here, we won't be able to help the people that we're trying to help if that is a distraction. So I don't have a good answer to this. I mean, the answer that we're using right now is controlled access.
Yeah. We did. Yes.
Yeah.
So controlled access during the week is very easy to get in. Press the button, someone in the office will buzz you in. That's been working for quite a while now. We also have the capacity to have the doors automatically unlocked and then locked again. So this is another process to try to figure out when these times need to be scheduled.
Yeah, this has been a wrestling match for a lot of us because of the hospitality of the church as a refuge, the church as a sanctuary. It's been a huge wrestling match for me in my own heart. And I'm consoled by you do good to everyone, but especially to the household of the faithful. And this has to be a place that is kept safe for the people that are the people of St. Bartholomew's. I want to commend a podcast to you all. Nomad has great Christian speakers. And on there is a man named Greg Boyle, who's in charge of the Homies in LA. And he takes formerly incarcerated people, gives them jobs and education, but has found out that jobs and education don't do it, and food, what does it is healing. And the way that they do healing is they provide sanctuary of others who have come out of that situation. And when somebody wants to come in for that type of healing, they're there to do it. That has not yet been St. Bartholomew's. It may someday be St. Bartholomew's. It isn't now. Our mental health is 1 hour at a time, and we feed a meal at a time. So we have to, there's a lot to pray through.
Greg Boyle. So I guess now it's Q&A.
Can you talk about gatherings in the evening, Wednesday night, Thursday night?
Right, Wednesday nights, Thursday night, the doors are open, or they can be unlocked, and then we're going to schedule them to be locked on Wednesdays at 8 o'clock here. The choir rehearses at 7:30. Previously, those choir doors downstairs have just been open. Choir members are up here, the door is open down there, choir room is open, Warden's Hall is open, so people have been able to come in. So we're going to start locking those doors down there. Then choir members who are really late will be able to enter here until 8 o'clock. After 8 o'clock, there will be someone designated in the choir that they can text or call to say, hey, I need to be let in. So those are the measures we're putting into place. But yet and still, doors are open. Everyone's in here for a class. Anyone can come in and go into the nave, behind the organ, and just wait. But we do what we can do. They can come in one of the rooms, but the security system also has motion detectors. So after everyone leaves the building, the security system is armed. If there is motion, then the system picks it up. A camera can pick up someone. So we do as much as we can, and then we leave it in God's hands.
So we have a policy of guns, carrying guns that are open. Or do we have a policy that guns should be in here?
No, we do not have a policy. Okay. Since Georgia is a state that allows open carry, we do not have a policy. We know that people here will be responsible, and that opens up a whole nother can of worms to disturb folks about their constitutional right. So
Kroger and Walmart have a policy.
Campuses and churches, I thought,
well,
could make policies.
yeah, that's true. Churches can make policies, but we've not decided to do that. We've not decided to do that.
I thought we had DOS. When this first happened, I think the DOS has issued a policy.
No, that was before my time. I don't know. Tell me about it.
Yeah, there's a policy issued by the bishop.
Okay. That says,
I think it says something about no firearms in the church and things like
And
that.
that's part of the statute.
Yes.
We have the ability as a church, part of the statute, to exempt ourselves.
I remember when that was made, and there was a sign, a hazard sign with a gun.
We have to have a sign to be that, we have to have a sign in a public area. That's one of the
okay.
requirements of the statute.
Well, I'm going to look into that. I haven't noticed any other Episcopal churches that have that sign. Not that, I just haven't noticed.
It hasn't been changed. I'm just saying that's what it was when it came out.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I know you have to get to the vesting room. So, any other questions that you might have for our team? One of the things I would say as you're thinking, if you have other questions, be patient with us. We're trying to work this through as best as we can. But also, if there are things that you think that we need to know, or that we need to look at and review, then please, you can send me an email to the senior warden inbox. It's listed on your bulletin sheet, or your news, whatever that thing is called, all the announcements. Then you can send me an email, and I'll make sure that gets to the rest of the team. But we definitely have been meeting, and we're working really diligently. We will be offering a medic first aid CPR class again. The great thing about that is because of my role at the Salvation Army, I'm a certified trainer, which means that I can do it for free, so you never have to pay to take the class if I'm your instructor. So we'll be offering that again at some point on a Saturday, and it's a good thing to go ahead and get done. So any final, yes, Cece. Yeah, since you brought it up, go for it. Hold on.